Hi guys, how are you today? Ready for some drama I have for you today? Let's go to the first story. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 25 female, am having a moral dilemma with my sister, 45 female, and her husband, 37 male. My sister, we'll call her Tina, around 7 years ago, met and started dating her now husband. We'll call him Greg. And none of us, her other siblings, like him. He doesn't treat my sister the way she should be treated, frequently speaking down to her, and even insulting her looks and weight, and generally just being an a-hole to us, her family. Now to the current problem. They've been trying to get pregnant and have a child since they got engaged. They got pregnant on their own once, had a miscarriage around 6 or 7 weeks, and then never conceived naturally again. Back at the beginning of their relationship, I offered to donate eggs to them for free. After their miscarriage and further infertility issues, they started looking into IVF and approached me about my offer. I agreed to do it and went through the entire process. In the end, we got 30-ish eggs. 25 or so were fertilizable, but only one good embryo was left at the end. We were all devastated, and I was told I might be infertile. They transferred the embryo, it didn't implant, and then tried the whole process again with a paid egg donor, which cost around $8 to $10K. And once again, only got 1 to 2 viable embryos. Neither embryo took, and my sister did a bunch more testing, procedures, to try and conceive, and was unsuccessful. Not too long ago, it came to light that part of the problem was that Greg was actively smoking W when it came time to donate his sperm samples for the 2 egg donations. Despite being told by the clinic that he couldn't smoke W or do any other D leading up to giving his sperm samples. Our family was very upset to learn this because we already don't like him, and we see our sister killing herself physically and mentally to give him a biological child, just for him to be unwilling to give one thing up to make the process work. Now they are trying to adopt and have asked me and my husband, 31 male, our family, and everyone else to help them pay for it. My husband and I just had our first child this year and aren't rich by any means. The problem for me is that Greg has made comments to me about how my egg donation wasn't enough, and that if I was a good sister, I would help support them. We haven't seen them since they put in the family group chat about wanting money, and I'm dreading the thought of seeing them because I know that they will bring up the fact that my sister paid for 2 of my semesters at community college and bought me a laptop for school, which they have told me that I don't have to pay them back. It's causing me a lot of anxiety because I know that Greg will not be respectful or gracious about asking, and my sister will cry and try to guilt us into helping them financially, which I'm not willing to do. We've received lots of passive-aggressive messages in the group chat about how this is all they want for Christmas. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Greg is a crazy a-hole who, in my opinion, has no business raising a child. Your eggs weren't good enough, so you should give them money? How about he give up his W money? Not the a-hole. You went through all the necessary procedures to donate eggs. As they know full well from their second round of IVF, you could have charged them $8,000 to $10,000 for being an egg donor. Your community college tuition and laptop have been paid for by that debt and then some. If they ask, just say you have already contributed to this cause and now need to focus on your own family. It's troubling that you're even questioning if you're the a-hole in this horrendously toxic situation. Greg is 1,000,000% the a-hole. He has been advised by the clinic to not do any D before the procedure, ignores their advice, then wants to blame you for not producing good eggs. Greg sounds like he's an insufferable, irresponsible infant who shouldn't be left in charge of a Cabbage Patch Kid. If they can't afford to adopt, then they can't afford to raise kids. Besides, if this is the way he treats his wife and her family, would you want to help give him access to a child that he can mentally manipulate? My advice, do not give them a cent. Background. My parents are high school sweethearts, but broke up at the end of undergrad. Dad got with someone else, got back with my mom, found out the last girlfriend was pregnant. Mom briefly broke up with him, but ended up taking him back. I, 32 male, was born a year after my brother, Max, 33 male. My family's quite conservative, and my paternal grandparents never really got over their disappointment over my dad having a baby with the wrong girl. My dad's always been pretty awkward with him, and my grandparents are straight-up jerks. Like, once called a 10-year-old out of his name jerks. Max has been no contact with my parents since before he finished high school, and is still very low contact with our dad. However, we've always been close. We played the same sports as kids, had basically the same friends in school. always supported each other. We shared a room every week until we were 5 years old, and then he moved in with us full-time when his mom died, around 9 years old. To me, he's never been my half-brother. He's just my brother, and practically my best friend. He moved to my city 2 years ago for a new job, lived with me and my then-girlfriend for about 4 months, and now that he's moved out, we still see each other a lot. The issue. Me and my fiancé are getting married in June, and Max is my best man. My grandparents are taking an issue with that. At first, it was just, "Are you sure?" with pinched lips. Last week, my grandma called and suggested making my college best friend best man instead. Her reasoning is that he's a good friend and a much better choice than my half-brother, given everything. I hang up on her, thought about it with my fiancé, and then texted Grandma that she was no longer invited to my wedding. Cue the whole family imploding. My dad thinks I'm out of line because I gave her no warning, and Max is technically my half-brother. Also, he says my wedding is still months away, so I should give Grandma the time to apologize. My paternal aunt and uncle and some cousins are also outraged over me disinviting her because she's an old lady. I'm one of her favorite grandchildren, and I can be annoyed with her, but I'm overreacting by uninviting her over something that small. They think my brother shares some of the blame for the bad blood between him and the family, for things he did as a teenager, so I shouldn't take sides. My fiancé is on my side, and my mom thinks my grandma knew better and can deal with the consequences. My brother is concerned about me burning bridges and regretting it later, but he acknowledges the idea of a grandma-free wedding sounds nice to him. I really don't think I'm the a-hole, because I never asked for suggestions on my best man, and I know my grandma means half-brother as an insult. Also, Max lost his husband 3 years ago. Being best man at my wedding is asking a lot of him emotionally, so I feel like uninviting people who are mean to him is kind of a no-brainer. But as I said, most of my family disagrees. Not the a-hole. In my opinion, too many family members with bad behavior get way too many passes because they're family. You deserve the wedding you want, with who you want. I don't know if it would be worth it to try to have a heart-to-heart with Grandma, but I don't really see her behavior changing, and she's forcing you to pick between her and Max. Congratulations on your wedding. Not the a-hole. I think it is awesome that you are standing up for your brother and calling your grandma out on her behavior. And for those relatives who think it's a small thing, it isn't. It has been an emotionally damaging situation for your brother. The fact that you acknowledge it probably means the world to him. I wish I would have had someone do the same for me and my family. Everyone sucks here. Grandma needs to keep her mean comments to herself. But you should have given her a, "Max is my brother and my best man. If you can't accept that, respect my choice and stop the negative comments about him. You won't be welcome at my wedding." She probably'd end up getting herself uninvited anyways, but you wouldn't be an a-hole because there would have been a warning. Okay, so to begin, I, female 20, have a big sister, female 23, and I'd like to think we're pretty close. Me and her have always shared a room up until she was in her later teens. For a bit of background, I'm a college dropout, but I have a job that pays a little more than minimum wage, like $1 or $2, and I'm currently a part-timer working full-time hours. She is a mother of 2, 1 and 5 years old, and has a husband who is a few years older than her. Ever since I started working, I've always been the bank of the family. Since I have no responsibilities other than myself, people come to me for their money issues. And though I hate it a lot and have told them as such, nothing changes. Up until a few months ago, I was doing well and my credit was great. My sister knows my credit score because she does credit building, or at least she wants to, and has a bit of knowledge on the topic. All this was okay until she decided it was time for me to get another credit card. She got me a gold American Express card before consulting with me and made herself a part of it. So she had a card under my name. I freaked out and told her I wasn't comfortable with that, so I didn't want to keep it, and she promised to be responsible with it. I caved and agreed to it after she promised me to pay for what she used. We then took a trip for 4 days to Florida, and all the expenses were paid with that card. We spent about $2,000 between me and her hubby. I thought it wasn't a big deal since I could make that in a month and a half and pay it all off if push comes to shove. Well, her spending didn't end there, and long story short, she maxed out the card. I still didn't mind this as she promised she'd pay it back, but later on my credit is nearing the floor, and I decided to take her off the card and pay off the dues myself, because not only was she barely paying the card, but she would use the money again and the payment I made on my part. It's been hellish having all that money being something I have to pay off. Well, today I was just relaxing on my day off when she asked me to vent. Of course I said yes because I was worried, and she told me she was in a huge amount of debt. She told me a number, very high. Her older kid is getting trouble at school, and her hubby is out of a job, which she doesn't have one as well due to needing to care for her children. I sometimes used to let her borrow my car for her to do Instacart on, but it was a big discomfort not being able to have my car whenever I needed it, which is every day. I have my own issues to worry about, aka the credit card debt, and my car needs a very expensive repair, plus me wanting to get back to school and find a major that I like so I can make a career. However, I feel like if I do that, I would be a major cow and a terrible sister and daughter. But I also think that I never had kids or a husband, so why should I be the one to help her shoulder those problems? Yeah, no, not the a-hole. And honestly, if I were you, I would notify the credit card company that this card was opened without your knowledge or permission. She's going to ruin your start into adulthood, trying to use you to avoid the stresses of her own life choices. You didn't have kids. You didn't get married. You didn't even open that credit card account. Stop letting her drag you down for her benefit. Stop setting yourself on fire to keep her warm. Oh, and lock your credit card report so she can't force you into financial ruin by opening more credit cards. Not the a-hole. You shouldn't feel guilty about cutting off support. They are capable of working and supporting themselves. They don't because you pick up the slack. Also, your sister seriously violated your trust over the card and did not keep her word. This alone is enough reason to discontinue. And plenty of people with kids also work. I always had to. Not the a-hole, but you were an idiot for not seeing this coming. You've had an expensive financial lesson. They are happy to live within your credit. I have a 17-year-old daughter, Cass, and an 8-year-old son, Mark. Cass is with my ex-wife, and Mark is with my wife. Cass lives with my ex and is long distance, ex-moved, and I only see her once every other month. Mark lives with me and my wife full-time. I will admit I struggle with a lot of guilt when it comes to Cass because of the distance. So when Cass wants something, I try to do all I can to make it happen. Cass is also extremely sensitive, so I have to handle her very carefully as to not upset her. Mark, on the other hand, is more out there, will try to argue back, and I tend to be a bit harder on him because he's got a stronger personality. About a month ago, Cass called saying she broke a brand new iPhone I'd given her as an early birthday present and asked me to pay to get it fixed for her. Since I rarely get the chance to do stuff for Cass, I said yes, sent her the money and reassured her that I'm not mad, it was an accident, but please be more careful with her devices. A week later, Mark broke his iPad he's had for over 2 years. Mark is rough on his stuff and a bit on the clumsy side. I told Mark it's his fault for not paying more attention, and it's going to be a while until his iPad is going to be fixed, and the money is going to come out of his allowance, and I hope it teaches him to be more responsible. Mark started arguing with me, and I ended up grounding him for 2 weeks, but really only followed through on the first week. Now my wife is mad at me, saying the way I reacted to Mark was unfair compared to the way I reacted to Cass, that I was forgiving and understanding to my daughter, who's older, but not my son, who's much younger. I tried to explain it as I don't see Cass much or get a chance to do as much for her, so anytime I can, I'm going to. Where I see and do stuff with Mark every day, so it's a different situation, and I handled each as they needed to be handled. My wife still insists I dropped the ball on the way I dealt with Mark, and said I should have treated him the same way I treated Cass, and brought up the fact Cass broke her brand new iPhone only a month after getting it, while Mark had his iPad over 2 years before anything went wrong. To add to this, Cass's phone was broken when she asked her friend to toss it to her, and she accidentally dropped her phone while trying to catch it. Mark wore out the charge port on his iPad, possibly due to mishandling it. Mark also has motor skill delays. You're the a-hole. Your son managed to hang onto that iPad for 2 years, and yet you claim he is rough on his stuff and doesn't take care? Your daughter broke her new phone in a matter of months. You may be acting out of guilt towards your daughter, but you shouldn't take it out on your son. Also, do you require both kids to keep their items in protective cases? My daughter has an old iPad of mine that we put in an OtterBox. She is 6 years old, and it is still in perfect shape. All devices should be in protective cases until the children buy their own. Obviously, you're the a-hole. You can't expect an 8-year-old to be more responsible or careful than a 17-year-old. What's your goal here? To raise 2 responsible kids who appreciate the value of $1, or to buy your daughter's affection out of guilt? I'm not saying you're wrong for getting her phone fixed, But you're wrong for holding your son to a higher standard than your daughter. You're basically showing them both that you have low expectations for her. It's hard enough for girls to achieve at the same level as boys, without the adults in their lives doubting what they're capable of. I say this as a retired teacher who saw it over and over again. You're the a-hole. So much you're the a-hole. You treat your elder daughter reasonably, but you treat your younger son like that? Yuck! He's going to end up resenting you and his sister. You're not teaching him anything except that you'll treat him like crap because of some misplaced guilt.